There has obviously been a big focus in the last year on how our local police departments reach out to the community. And today we got a couple of guests who are going to talk about the ongoing efforts to reach out to the community. In fact, Josh Kennedy is the brand new Community Affairs Coordinator for the Johnston Police Department. Josh, welcome to the studio. Thanks very much for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
And Lieutenant Tyler Tompkins, also here from the Johnston Police Department. Thanks, Lieutenant Tompkins, for being with me.
Appreciate it.
And my producer says, please lean into the microphone, guys, and we will start the conversation. So, Josh, tell me about your duties, what you'll be doing as Community Affairs Coordinator.
Well, this is my fifth day, I want to say, on the job right now as well, too. So I'm learning a lot of different things as far as the stuff that Johnston is doing right now. But the primary sense of what I'm going to do is essentially wrap around, follow-up care, kind of help, I would say, just more or less bring services-wise out to the community as much as I possibly can.
And I noticed, Lieutenant Tompkins, that Josh is a civilian. Obviously, you reach out to the community a lot in your role as a police officer. Why was it important to hire a civilian to do community outreach as well?
Let's think about this. Josh's background, he was in the schools for years.
Yeah.
He worked with students and students' families for, 13 years, Josh?
14 years.
14 years at the Johnston schools. He's already integrated into our community. When an officer goes to a call, that's a moment in time. You know, they can't solve everybody's problems. They're on to the next call. They do everything they can. We ask a lot of our officers when they're on scene, right?
Yep.
So they can't be a mental health counselor, a financial counselor. They don't know all the resources. They do an exceptional job when they're on scene. But now having Josh, having a civilian that can go out, follow up, and close that gap between services and the service that we provide our community, that's going to be the key for Josh's position.
And Josh, what created a passion in you to want to make this transition and say, I do want to work with the Johnston Police Department and do what Lieutenant Tompkins was saying, which is be the follow-up guy, basically?
Well, I've always had, like Lieutenant Tompkins said, I've been working with Johnston schools now in the community for 14 years. And really, out of that 14 years, I've had a lot of contact-wise with SROs and the police department as well, too. And I've had a fantastic experience working with them as well. When this job opened up, really, I kind of thought long and hard because I didn't really want to leave the school district, but I felt like this created a great opportunity in order to expand upon what I was doing already as well with the community.
Lieutenant Tompkins, in the last year, there's been a lot of examination, obviously, about how police departments reach out to the community. What issues are the issues that you come back to time and time again that you say, you know, these are the things that we need to do to improve our relationship with the community overall?
Follow-up. You know, I said it's a moment in time when we deal with people, and we try to do follow-up. We follow up with domestic abuse victims. We try and follow up with mental health. But we just don't have the time. And our officers, while they're trained for that moment in time, they're not trained for the sustained care that people need. And Josh is in that world. And Josh knows the resources, has that ability to go out and connect with people where our officers, and unfortunately, as hard as we try to get past that we, you know, are normal folks, when we show up, sometimes if people have had bad experience with law enforcement in the past. And that's hard to overcome. So ideally, we can have Josh go and work through those issues. And at the end of the day, actually bring us closer to those folks so they do understand that we care for our community and we just want to help.
Josh, you said you were a few days into the job. Can you give me an idea of the differences at this point that you're seeing between working for the school district, working for the police? Is it, because I noticed that Lieutenant Tompkins goes back to, you know, it's about time. It's about having the time to follow up. Is that the biggest difference you're finding so far?
Right now, and again, just kind of learning the ropes and going through, excuse me, some of the training that I'm doing as well, and just kind of seeing how, you know, the officers that are working with right now handle certain situations. Yeah, time is a factor, really, and we all know, there's not enough time really to be able to get everything that we want to be able to do.
Yeah.
But for as much as I can try to help tie in together is kind of what my goal is going to try to help out with.
Lieutenant Tompkins, has it been more of a challenge this past year? I always think that, like, the Johnston Police Department overall has a really positive image in the community. Were people's perceptions shaped by all the media attention in the last year, or is it something where you feel like, look, this is just a system of constant improvement with us? Did people's perception of police change in the last year?
I think it changed. I mean, media in general has been pervasive with pushing out, what's been happening around the world in different viewpoints.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And law enforcement should be a representation of the community, both in view and also in how that community thinks the police should act. And so if people think that we should be providing more services, and then we need to adjust and go a different route. And it is something different to bring a civilian person on. But look, like I said before, he's got 13 years of experience. We'd have to go back and start training an officer 13 years ago to reach the level that Josh has now.
I know that, Josh, police officers in Central Iowa, in my perception, really do work hard to improve their image in the community. But Lieutenant Tompkins also was very frank about sometimes there's a distrust going on. Where do you think the origin of the distrust comes from sometimes when you have to deal with somebody that was truly frightened or didn't want to talk with a police officer when they saw a person in the uniform?
When I look back on, it's a good question, Wise, and when I look back on just in my time working with the school resource officers over in Johnston, there was some hesitation, Wise, when, they came aboard as well, too. But what I like to see and what I've seen so far over the years that I've been at, the level of getting familiarity and getting to know really and getting to bring that trust in, Wise, I think helps bring in that engagement better is what it is. So I think over time and over, again, trying to get out there and trying to get more one-on-one, Wise, with people, I think helps bridge a gap a little bit more as well, too.
Has the perception in Johnston of school resource officers been positive, Lieutenant Tompkins? Because there are some communities that say in order to improve the perception of police, we have to get them out of our schools, which to me, that sounds counterintuitive. That sounds like you would be defeating your purpose. But there has been some push in some communities. But is that the case in Johnston?
We haven't felt it in our community. We've been supported by the school. We've been supported in person by the families in the school. Yeah. And we really push our school resource officers to be non-punitive. That if there's a way that the school can handle whatever it is that happened in there and handle it on the school level, then we enforce that. We want that for our officers. But the officers are also great. They're good sounding boards. Kids come up to them all the time, ask about law enforcement, ask about laws, ask about things that have happened in their lives. And I can tell you it has been the #1 outreach program that we've ever had in our department. And I've been there almost 20 years now.
Sure. That is Lieutenant Tyler Tompkins, also Josh Kennedy joining me from the Johnston Police Department. Gentlemen, thanks very much. This is a really important topic, as you know, these days. Thanks for taking the time to talk about it with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.